Welcome to Nobilis Erotica episode 375. I am your host, Nobilis Reed. This week I'm bringing you the final piece of Capricious, a short interview with the author, Julie Cox. Afterwards, we'll have some Capricious-related feedback. Welcome to Nobilis Erotica, one of the few times that I do an interview on this podcast, and I thought that after doing the long serialization of Capricious, I would have the author in to answer a few questions, because after finishing this novel, I've got a lot of questions, and I figure my listeners have got some too. Why don't you introduce yourself? Are you going to, I'll cut this part out. You're going to go by Julie Cox or not on this?
Yeah, we'll stick with Julie Cox. My name has changed now because I'm divorced, but Cox is kind of a perfect name for an erotica writer, so I'm just going to keep it.
Okay. All right. So, Julie, where did Capricious come from? How did it come to be?
I guess it originally had its roots in reading the story of the 3 Billy Goats Gruff to my children. That was an obsession for a while, and we had a beautifully illustrated book, and it had like a cute little baby goat and a middle-sized goat, and then this enormous Billy Goat Gruff with these huge curling horns, and I was very impressed with that goat. And and about that time, I started spinning my own yarn and became acquainted with people who owned livestock, including Maya Stone, who owned these magnificent Angora goats, who were huge and her oldest buck had a horn span of like 4 feet, from tip to tip. Just
wow,
magnificent animal. And I found myself thinking, I have to put these horns on a character. I don't remember where the connection came from between Billy Goat's Gruff and a satyr, but I suspect it probably had something to do with a mishmash of watching Chronicles of Narnia and the fairy book by Froud, which has some beautiful horned creatures in there. And I couldn't seem to make a satyr fit very well in an urban environment. I discovered I had to put them in a rural environment where a goat could act like a goat. And my family spent a lot of time in West Texas, going out there and vacationing and whatnot, so I'm very familiar with that area. I've spent a lot of time in impoverished rural areas. And so it just kind of all came together in this great soup that I had to put a satyr with huge horns out in West Texas.
Was this your first novel?
It was my first novel-length work that was worth seeing the light of day.
Right, but there were other abortive attempts before that?
There were. I actually finished 2 novels before Capricious. Went back and read them in the last year or so, and wow, yeah, those should never be read by anyone, including me, ever again.
You're lucky. A lot of people publish those. So Capricious is unusual for an erotic romance with a male protagonist. Now, I guess a satyr you just kind of had to be, because that was the inspiration was the satyr, so he kind of had to be front and center.
Yes, I could have made a female satyr, but I don't know. The character of Luke was who presented himself to me. And especially, I think, because being around goats, the does are always very. They can be friendly or they can be standoffish, but they're never as loud and brash and obnoxious as the bucks. And so I needed someone loud and brash and obnoxious, and that became Luke.
Did writing a male protagonist offer any challenges, from your opinion?
Not really, because, fun fact, as a friend of mine phrases it, I am on the transgender spectrum.
Okay.
I tend to think of myself as male about half the time, and I'm male in my dreams most of the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's fun. So
I didn't know that.
Writing from a male perspective is actually not very difficult at all.
So you told us how you came up with the character. At what point did you know, like, the story's shape? Not necessarily all the plot details, but just how it was going to go. Was that something you planned out ahead of time, or did you discover it as you were writing it?
Kind of a little bit of each. I had what I thought was a first draft, but was actually more like a very detailed outline when I first started. But long about 3/4 of the way through, I took a sharp left and deviated completely from where I was going to go initially, and then kind of circled way back around to the same ending.
So what was the part that got cut when you deviated off the path? Where were you going? Do you remember where you were going to go with that?
Actually, I was going to have Luke's male love interest be Cormac and not Charlie. And Charlie was a late addition to the story process, and I finally realized when I was trying to write the scenes with Cormac's straight, and I couldn't make him bisexual as hard as I tried.
So what are you reading right now?
I just finished Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
And I'm so glad that I just finished something good and not something completely trashy. Not that I have anything against trash, obviously, but yeah. And I just started John Scalzi's Collapsing Empire. And I am slowly but surely slogging my way through the Hamilton biography by Ron Chernow. It's very dense. So I'll go a few pages and then I'll fall asleep.
So the end of Capricious gives us a real wide view of Luke and Sally's world. You tell us how they live together and what their house looks like and what happens to Allison and Charlie and even how Luke and Sally come together in future lives. But one thing I think I missed. Either you told me and I missed it or else it wasn't there. What happens to Brent?
I didn't write that. I didn't.
He is just dragged off into the sunset by August, and did you leave that to the imagination on purpose? It's like
pretty much. I think I started to write it at one point and was like, you know what, this really isn't necessary because the headless horseman is going to drag him off into the woods, off to upstate New York, and they're going to do with him whatever it is that they do with bad myth folk. Who knows what that is? I haven't gotten to it, frankly.
So that I guess brings up what are you writing these days?
Yes, right now I am working on the sequel to Capricious, which is called Bleeding Hearts, which is about August. And I've had a couple of false starts with that one, but I think I'm getting back on track.
Good. I'm sure that at least some of the people listening to this will be looking forward to that. And finally, where can people find you online? If they've enjoyed what's going on and they want to keep up on what you're doing, where's the best place to do that?
Well, my writing blog is at writingwhilehuman.com. The idea being that being a writer and being a good human at the same time can sometimes kind of be difficult with all the other things that humans have going on. And on Twitter, I'm SequelPie at Twitter. That's SQLPI. And I'm kind of obnoxious on there.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you for coming on to have a few words with us. And I look forward to Bleeding Hearts when it comes out.
All right. Thank you so much, Nobilis.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. And now, feedback.
Hi, Nobilis. It's Dan from Petaluma, California. Just calling to thank you and give you kudos for the amazing production that was Capricious. When you first ran it on Nobilis Erotica, I guess you ran like a chapter, and I immediately went out and bought the ebook and enjoyed the heck out of the story. But your read-through of the entire thing really took what was a good story and the characterizations and the voices made it a great story. Really appreciated it. Really enjoyed it. Thanks.
Hey Nobilis, it's Sarah Testarossa calling in with some feedback for Capricious, which I finally finished. I say finally, but it's not like it's been done for that long, but as someone who can devour fiction, the fact that I didn't says something, because I just didn't want it to be over because it was so good and so fun, and now I am a little sad it's over, and I'm really like, oh my god, when she finishes the sequel, I am going to be all over that. But right now, I'm just thinking, what a ride that was. I'm sure that I would have enjoyed it a lot if I had been reading it myself out of, a paperback or an ebook. But this was just a fantastic work of narration on your part. I think that this is probably your best work yet in terms of narration. I can't pinpoint 100% why, but one thing is just the voices of the characters is one thing, but just especially Luke, because I remember you saying something about that being, you couldn't do too much of that at a time because it would fuck with your throat. But it wasn't just the character voices, it was also just the narration in general, like the way that you paced everything, and it was just really fucking well done, okay? And that, basically excellent narration, plus a really cool story with twists and turns and sexy parts and just lots of things happening, but all that makes sense, and intertwinements and cool characters, like all of that stuff combined just made for this being a really special experience. And that's part of why I ended up savoring it a lot of the time and letting myself get behind, because it's just like, it's like that kind of thing where you want it to last, and you want to be in the mood to like appreciate it as much as possible, or at least that's what I was doing. But this was just a really special experience to me, and some of that was because of how many times I ended up busting out laughing, or how many times in real life, like, something would happen that would make me think of the story. Like, it's ridiculous how many goat references and just other random things that are mythfolk related, how many times like stuff like that came up in my life that made me think of the story. I know that's kind of, I forget what it's called, the psychological phenomenon where you start seeing something everywhere once you've seen it the first time. But yeah, this has just been a really great ride, and I'm extremely grateful to Julie Cox for writing it and for letting you record it, and for you for putting in all the work and recording it, and editing, of course. It's just been a long, strange trip, so to speak. I really do like the way it ended, although it's kind of like bittersweet in a way, but mostly sweet, but thinking. But yeah, mainly this is me waxing sentimental, because this was, well, it's a sentimental experience. It's been a sentimental experience, so thank you both again. And yeah, it's been great. Rock on. Bye.
And remember, if you're not supporting Nobilis Erotica, you're not getting the whole podcast. Sign up at patreon.com/Nobilis to get monthly exclusive content in audio and ebook form. You have been listening to the Nobilis Erotica podcast. Theme music is composed and performed by Mass Relay. This podcast is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license. Until next time, listen hard.